Welcome to the International Franchise Association's Her Success webinar series. I'm Michelle Rowan. I'm President and COO of Franchise Business Review and the current chair of the Women's Franchise Committee. And 2021 marked the 25th anniversary of the Women's Franchise Committee. So I reached out to some of the people that were there at the very beginning to just kind of talk with us more about what it was like to be in franchising as a woman in 1996 when they formed the committee, and the changes that they've seen over the years that they've been involved. So today I'm so lucky to have joining us Kim Ellis, and I will say all of these ladies have been with other, well, except for Rosemary, I believe, have been with other brands. So I'm just going to tell you where they are currently. But Kim Ellis is currently the VP of Franchise Development at Brewster's. We have Lynette McKee, who's the CEO and Managing Partner of McKee Co. Services. Rosemary Hartnett, President of Abracadoodle. And Terry Ann Barnes, the principal at FeeSmart. And did I say that right, Terry Ann?
Perfect.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies, all for joining me today. And I just want to start, if you guys want to just kind of throw out, how did this, from what you remember, how did this come together, or how did you get started in pulling everyone together to create any kind of women's group within franchising?
Well, I think Lori Rennick was a huge motivating factor. She was definitely one of the women that really realized that, in those days, it was definitely the good old boys club, and a lot of gentlemen were running the show. And Lori Rennick and Joanne Shaw were both very influential women, and really realized that there was a whole generation of women coming up, and she wanted the opportunity to pull them together and bring in different perspective, because women at that time were really emerging in business, and we were still facing a lot of challenges. And this was a way to come together and share stories and share ideas, but even more, make it a comfortable, safe, and in supportive space for other women to come in and network and share stories and ideas and perspectives, and really kind of make it even more valuable as part of your membership to IFA.
And so Lori Rennick was one of the co-founders of American Leak Detection, and Joanne Shaw was it the Coffee Beanery?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
And we can't leave out Bonnie Levine and at Pip Printing, because she was also, co-owner of Pip Printing with her husband, Bill Levine. And I remember being at an IFA convention and just looking around. I just have to stop and say, the women that were involved and that are involved are such powerhouse women. The women on this call, there's nothing frail, there's nothing shy, there's nothing retiring about any of us. And they had no idea what they were unleashing. Maybe they thought it was going to be a breakfast, women's breakfast, but no, they unleashed a tsunami of talent that continues today. And so that's what I still have. I think often when people talk about women entrepreneurs, at least back then in 96, it was like, well, maybe they can do a little side business, maybe something in their garage. Maybe, it just wasn't this idea that these people would be the future of franchising. And so I don't want that to go underappreciated. And I appreciated that these women were out there alone. And oftentimes I found that other women it was at a time when you weren't supposed to be a woman, right? You dressed like a man, you did the whole the thing. And to acknowledge that being a woman had anything to do with your success was taboo. You just did, I got it on my own. I did it on my own. The fact that I'm a woman has nothing to do with it. And we were one of the first that said, yeah, it does. And we're proud of it. So yay, team.
Well
yeah,
said.
and Terry Ann, what you said before we started, you said there's no crying in franchising. That has certainly changed over the last 25 years.
No, we cried then too. I just didn't want to say it, but yeah, we did.
And we have Jackie Adams just joined us as well, and she's the director of operations for new franchise development at Floor Coverings International. Jackie, thanks for jumping on. We're just talking about the origins of the WFC and how it came together. Rosemary, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I did. I'm so inspired by the comments from Kim and Terry Ann. It just reminds me that you know, we were all growing up in franchising.
Mhm.
The people
Yes,
on,
yes.
on this and other women that were involved with us and grew to great leadership positions. It, you know, part of the, you know, the rationale of coming together is that we really believed in the value of the IFA, our education through the IFA. We grew up in franchising through the IFA. But we didn't have at that time something that was specifically targeted to give us the courage,
Yes.
some of us maybe, to give us the courage to say, yes, we can. Yes, we can be the CEO. Yes, we can, in, for example, myself, be a founder of a franchise brand. You know, be the, you know, the chair, I'm a past chair of the, you know, ICFE Board of Governors. Back then, I don't know if I, you know, could have conceived of that, but I knew I had a lot of passion for franchising. And this created a really safe place that was very targeted for us. And we were growing up.
Yeah, and I'm interested too, Lynette or Jackie, if you want to weigh in, like now it's so easy for us to communicate with each other. So I'm texting with people on the committee. We see each other at events. We're on these virtual calls. But what was it like back in 1996? I'm not trying to say like, was there computers then? I know there was.
It was
I
horse
wasn't
and buggy,
college at the
Michelle. Come
time.
on.
There were
But how did you
photos
guys
then.
connect? Right? I mean,
Totally.
how did you just walk up to each other and introduce yourself? Or I mean, you obviously could spot each other, but like, what was it like?
Yeah, that, emails, phone calls, you know, and it was interesting. The networking part was really important because those women that had already elevated to senior level positions were a little bit, you know, when you're starting out in franchising, and I'd been in franchising for about 6 years in 1996, but you know, I still felt like a newbie. And the women that had already reached some of those levels were really helpful, cordial, opening. And that was something that I think the WFC really brought to the table, was having that safe network to be able to talk to other women about how you were dealing with certain issues. You know, in the first few years of my career, it was considered, if you were female, you were an administrative assistant, basically.
Right.
Yeah, and one company I worked for, all the women wore uniforms, and I was the first one not to wear a uniform.
Wow.
I was, when you guys were saying, we grew up, you said them, Rosemary, we grew up in the IFA in spite of the IFA. I just think back to all the battles. Like, remember the very first leadership conference? We couldn't even call it leadership conference. We couldn't charge for it. We couldn't advertise for it. It was horrible.
Oh, that is very true.
Yeah.
But
It
now
was-
it's considered
Remember-
one of the best platforms in the entire conference.
Yeah.
Does anybody
Exactly.
remember? Does anybody remember a convention where it was in Las Vegas and we'd given out? I don't know which award it was. One of our awards, either the Crystal Compass or the
Right.
Fine.
thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
And it was on a stage and there were 2 Las Vegas dancers on either side of the platform. And then whoever got the award was supposed to be in the middle and take a picture with these 2 Las Vegas showgirls. And it was in Franchising World magazine. And do you remember that, Kim? It was just like,
I do.
oh my God,
It was-
there's our award. You know, it's like, wow.
that's a great example of the
2 sides
time.
of the story. Yeah, it was, exactly.
It was the times. And, you know, going back, Jackie, to your comment about the first leadership conference, we started that for Joyce.
Yeah.
That was Joyce's idea.
Yeah.
And there was so much pushback that we actually had to go to Michael's side and help him make the case to the board. And they finally allowed us little women to get our conference, but they put it on the day before
Right.
the conference started, before the convention started, thinking nobody would come. And it became this giant successful over
Yeah,
the course
we had-
of 10 years. I mean, the first time we did it, it was only 60 people showing up. By the time I left WFC, I remember having, 250? I'm sure you have,
Yep.
Michelle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
hundreds.
we try and cap it because we
Yeah.
want to keep that kind of intimate feeling that we have, but we've gone up to 300. We did it virtually last year for the first time when IFA went virtual. But I was going to say I felt like 60 was good because when I came into franchising in 2005, I was so thrilled to see it on the agenda, and I went. And I remember telling Eric Stites, my founder, like, you can come to this. This is not just for women.
Oh,
But
yeah.
there wasn't that awareness that there's men in the room and they definitely can benefit from this content. And now we have a lot more men, but so 2000 was the first. And Joyce, can you just explain who Joyce was?
Joyce Mazzaro?
Mhm.
Yeah. What was her business?
A franchise attorney.
Okay. So yeah, so I just want to make sure because these are names that people might not know. There were suppliers
Yeah,
and
a
there were
powerhouse.
franchisors that were doing this together.
Oh, yeah. She was she was literally the force,
Yes,
and she fought IFA every day.
all the
But I
time.
would say, you guys, I just want to add a little, not detract from that, but
No.
it was more from it wasn't a discrimination, for lack of a better word. It was underestimation. That's what it
Yes.
was. As Kim said, they didn't think anybody would come. They didn't think who's gonna. It wasn't. It was just we were invisible. It was ignored. It was not. They didn't
It
think
was the time. It was because of the time.
It was the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it wasn't. They were against it. It's just like what is this? What
It was so
Um,
it was so radically different, right? Than anything.
Yeah.
The big
But I would
question
add that
was-
we also had again, Kim said the Times, we had, our franchise, the USA Today reporter was a woman, Janet Lewis. We had SBA, we had the White House Women's Entrepreneur Council. We had, at that first conference, we only had 60 people, but the panel was stellar. And I think that also helped our case to realize that not only did we believe in ourselves, the rest of the world was looking at women entrepreneurs, as someone had said earlier. I don't know, Rosemary, and so it was kind of a perfect storm in that way, in that
Mhm.
we were not a voice in the wilderness. Other entities in education, in government, were starting to say, hey, what is this thing with women, entrepreneurs, and women in franchising was
Well,
huge.
so Joyce got her inspiration from Women's Food Service Forum.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that was really the
if I can,
impetus for us to create that for the IFA.
If I can just jump in on this, it brings a lot of memories back, right? I haven't thought, and I've been thinking about this, time to talk, with all of you and the shared memories. It was how I kind of think about it now, and it was the times, right? But it was a lack of understanding, I think, of what our intention was. And
Yeah.
did we want to create,
Mhm.
there were some exaggerations, and did we want to create our own entity, so to speak? Did we want to create our own group of awards? And you'll remember, the Crystal Compass got a little bit of pushback because it talked to that misunderstanding or that concern that, do this group of women want to come and sort of create this splinter group from the IFA?
But Rosemary, at that time, how many women had won any of them other major IFA awards?
Oh,
And that was exactly, and that was part of the catalyst, as best as I can
Yeah.
remember, in how
Yeah.
the Crystal Compass,
Yes.
came to be, because we were coming together to grow together and to create a safe place for sharing best practices. You'll remember the mentoring task
Mhm.
force
Mhm.
that we launched in 2007, and then of course that built out and grew through our networks, right? Our chapter networks is
Yep.
what we do today through our chapter networks that now include men and women. And we, the committee became a true influencer in franchising, very much aligned with all of our principles for the IFA. Back then,
Right.
the intention of what this was
Yeah.
misunderstood. And it took time, as things do, and new things. What if people say, my franchise system knows, I say things like, a confused mind says no. I think it grew a little bit from that. I think there was a lack of understanding of our intention. And I think as we grew as a committee and we really, as role models, these are fabulous women on our
Yeah.
call today and so many others, we were better understood.
Mhm.
And we reached those, that broader education and inclusion of everyone. And now that leadership conference is, we started the Women's Franchise Leadership Conference, and now, of course, it's the leadership conference, right? And it is your go-to.
Yeah.
It is your go-to before you start your IFA convention experience. You go to the leadership conference, and it's become a kind of become a springboard in your go-to. I think for growing as a leader, but also getting involved in the IFA because the WFC and its chapters are so welcoming.
Yeah.
Right?
I was cleaning some. I was cleaning some stuff out and I found, remember the red pin? Asked me about WFC.
Yes. With the
Yes.
arrows.
Red pin. I found some of
Yep.
those when I was cleaning out my office a couple weeks ago, and I'm like,
mean,
I'll
we-
bring
So
that-
we've resurrected the pin, so we'll have
Oh.
those on at
Oh
the
my
IFA
gosh.
this year.
I'll bring mine to the meeting.
I
Excellent.
still
Yeah,
have my
but- so-
written.
Yeah, and Rosemary, what
get
I
a-
was gonna say too is when I came into franchising, I felt like the IFA, the whole establishment was very much like status quo. They weren't innovative. They weren't looking for new ideas. And Jackie, I've had the pleasure of working with Jackie on some planning stuff for events. But since I've been involved in WFC, we really have focused. So it's been 8 years that I've been on the committee. We've focused the panels to make sure that we have diversity up there and that we want people that aren't on the main stage. So this is kind of, like you said, that springboard to getting a bigger stage at IFA. But I think we've all pushed that conversation so much that IFA has embraced it. And the people that are there and now our liaisons, they're not allowing anyone on the staff to say, we're doing it this way because we've always done that way. There's much, I think, broader thought, and they're much more mindful as far as creating that diversity of thought. They're letting younger people, it used to be very much like only older people were on the panel that had that experience. We're involving younger people on the committees, on the panels, people of color, people of gender, like being very mindful that we don't have a panel full of old white men, to be blunt about it. So I have enjoyed that change, being part of that change for sure.
Michelle,
Yeah,
can I
the
give a shout
IFA
out
has
to
moved
Lynette?
into a whole new chapter.
Can I give a
What was
shout out to
that?
Lynette?
Yeah.
Linda McKee, I can, looking at her now, I can see her at a franchise committee meeting table in that library. And I am a passionate but not very patient person, but you have to have strategy. And all of you are brilliant at that. And Lynette brought the strategy every time to kind of speak the language that needed to be spoken at the time to keep the conversation moving forward and not shutting down, because there were many times, you can't get this frustrated. You have to get, focused. And I just thank Lynette for always being that person. She never missed a meeting. She was always there and always just kind of, okay, let's look at it this way, pulling me out in the hallway and saying, okay, calm down. It's okay. Let's go back in. So
Thank you for
thank you,
that.
Lynette, for that. Yeah.
Yeah, Lynette, what did you say? What you guys were speaking at the same time? I think you were saying something too.
No, I just said that the IFA has moved into a totally new chapter. And a part of that, I think, is the new blood that's there. And they're looking at just taking it to a much different level than what we've seen anywhere in the past.
Yeah, I think it's been great. And so so it sounds like your mission in the start was to create that networking, that education. You created the WFN chapters. Those are the regional networking groups. So that, I think all of that mission still holds with what the committee is focused on now. And we've also added Women in Franchising is a weekly call we do on Clubhouse, which is an audio only app. And that was our effort to try and expand the opportunity to network outside. So if they're not an IFA member, they can still come and learn about franchising and connect with us too, and learn more about the association as well. But I like that we're kind of extending that reach and not making it a barrier that you have to pay for membership to get access to these people. And hopefully they'll understand the importance of getting involved with the association from an education standpoint. So just from what you guys have seen over the length that you've been in franchising, what do you hope the next chapter of WFC looks like? What do you think that we should be focusing on as a group to just continue growing the message of We're here to support each other and hopefully help you not make mistakes, that you can learn from the mistakes that we've made. What do you see that should be on our radar for how we continue helping people?
You know,
Yeah.
one of the things, oh, go ahead, Jackie.
No, oh, thanks, Lynette. I mean, one of the things that I would think about based on what we just talked about, right? They're letting, like, younger people are coming in. It's kind of, there's other people outside of franchising. There might be an opportunity for us to kind of resurrect a mentoring type program for the younger folks, because we all went through that as the younger folks, right? And now there's really nothing like that out there, but it's a whole different, as you said, it's a whole different world. But there might be some opportunity for us to help bring others along, especially if it's wrapped a little bit, maybe that little bit that's wrapped into the Clubhouse talk, right? If you're coming in, we can help you get in, we can help you connect. And maybe not so structured so formally, but I think there might be an opportunity, because a lot of our group now is our turn to give back.
Yeah.
With new people. So I think I always like those type of programs personally. So, but there might be, I don't think we actually have something like that in place right now in the WFN, right? Or
Correct.
WFC. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So.
And
Great
for me, I would like to see us own more of the storytelling. You know, when I look at some of the articles about women in franchising, it sounds like it's still 1996 as far as like, this is a new thing and it's just beginning to happen and what. I'm like, this is not, you know, I'm like, it's not new, people. And so somehow, I mean, I just think, again, I'm glad that you're doing the one-on-ones, Michelle, and letting people know about some of the leaders that were there and continue to be there, and that they are fully leaders. You know, they're not. It's I think often, I know going into the corporate world, a lot of the women at the top were either not married or had spouses that stayed at home or didn't have children. And that's not the case today. And to sort of change that profile, what does it look like to be a leader and tell the whole story of we have lives. I mean, it's not just, I remember you talked about Women's Franchise Network, you know, you got up in your St. John knit suit and life was perfect, but it's not. And so I think people telling the whole story and letting women and young people know you don't have to be perfect to do this work. In fact, none of us are. So the rest of the story, I think, is important to tell, if that made any sense at all.
No, I agree. Yeah, I think that they're, you know, being authentic and not just kind of that.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think we should bring the Showgirls back this year to the award?
Absolutely.
Well, next year we're in Vegas, not this year.
But you know what, though, on that note too, you all would know this. There used to be a thing called the spouses brunch, especially just for the board, and they would even arrange, it was for the board members, and it would be for, they go shopping or there'd be a spa day or something. And the first time a male spouse showed up, it was like, oh yeah, you know, yep. we don't have to have all male. Again, 1996, that was the day. I mean, what we did to ourselves and how we allowed ourselves to be kind of made smaller, I think. And now we're not doing that anymore. And I'm really happy about that.
Love it.
Is there still a spouses brunch for the board?
Sorry?
Is there still a spouses brunch where the board is meeting? What happens during it?
My husband got to go shopping and to the spa.
So you know, Kim.
Wow.
If I could add to that, it's just the idea of storytelling.
Yes.
And the WFC created approachability, right? To we were growing up, right? Through the years, we achieved certain levels of success and in our organizations, and we continued, as in the spirit of the WFC, to be approachable to other women, to anyone in franchising. And I love the idea of redesigning maybe and resurrecting the mentorship program. But in some of these, the interview that I did, Michelle, with
was it Catherine LeBlanc?
Marissa Founts.
Oh, okay.
Marissa Founts, and it and I watched the other, the other folks that had done these interviews, and I know these people for years, and I learned things about them. Yes, there are times when you're really afraid. Yes, there are these moments of, you doubt, and where do you find the strength, and where do you lean? Where do you go when you feel that fear? It just continued to make the people that are involved very approachable, very human, sharing their experiences, and just making us ever more approachable. And if anything, in the last 2 years, look how we're so great at these video conferencing now, right? We've really got this down. Depending on your organization, we didn't do a lot of that, right? In our brand, I think other brands as well, but we can be very, I love that word, authentic. We can be really authentic, and tell our stories and our journey, which it invites other people to think, yes, I can, if they can feel that real person behind that brand or that success story.
Yes.
I'd like to see the WFC do more of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something I'd like to add too, is there's a lot of us that have been around for many years. And as we look to using our experiences, is maybe looking at some type of a program, and it may not be something we could implement this year, but from a board seat perspective, not from the IFA, but from franchise companies. I actually sit on a board now of a restaurant concept, and it's amazing the things that the rest of the board don't have the experiences that I have had.
Right.
And to be able to allow other women to be able to, I think when these boards are looking for their next seat assignment, a lot of times they don't think about the women that have been in the business for 20, 25, 30 years. They can bring a lot to the table and a different perspective. And so that's something that if we could even just get the message out to franchisors, again, don't look at the, all white males sitting on your board of directors, because there's a lot of experience and knowledge and things that we can bring to the table that, a lot of these companies are missing out on.
Yeah, that's a great
Yeah.
point.
Great
And we've
idea.
seen this past year, we've seen the women on the franchise committee have made some really great career moves this past year. And I think that people are understanding that these are great minds. And so I think we're looked at as a potential talent acquisition, but a board acquisition is a great way. Who wants to raise their hand for a board position? How can we make that information available? It's a great idea.
Yeah.
So Michelle, going to your question, one of the things that I think there seems to be, at least in my impression, is the WFN, the Women's Franchise Network. Those chapters were formed specifically for us on the WFC, to reach people on a local level, women that weren't coming to IFA, women that weren't able, their employers didn't, they took the top executives, but they didn't take the marketing coordinator and the operations manager, but they're still in franchising, and they had higher hopes of becoming more advanced in and not having that formal education with the IFA. So with that, what we envisioned with the WFN was creating a broader reach and bringing those women into that circle. Somewhere along the line, that vision, at least in my experience, when I've gone to WFN meetings locally, it's lost that vision, and they don't seem to have a lot of direction on what those meetings are supposed to be about. They tend to be more, it's a lot of networking, which is fantastic, and that should be part of it, but there's not an educational piece to it. There's not a, you're not going home with a aha moment, or having that vision of, okay, there's another level, or how can I help somebody else? Those are the things that were part of that vision. And I would love to see the WFN become more focused, I guess is a better way of putting it.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Jackie, did you want to add anything on that?
No, I mean, I know that I've gone to the one in Atlanta a couple times. I know, because that was really Kim's vision to drive the form of that. That was your thing, Kim, right? If I remember correctly. 'Cause you had the one in Minneapolis, which was fabulous. And I think still is. I think I still get emails. But I know, so I agree. The one that's here, I've gone a couple times. I've tried to bring along some of the folks that are in my office, you know, because since we're based here. And it's way more of a networking. Let's find a food person and they'll pay for the food and the booze, and there's
Mhm.
no real programming. Kind of weird. It's
There's
kind of
no
weird.
agenda.
And for us, it's really tied in with the Southeast Franchise Forum, which is still going strong here, which was one of the first regional meeting people. We used to we remember the old second Tuesday, right?
Yes.
That was
Oh, yeah.
one of the original second
FPN.
Tuesdays that we met every
FPN.
month instead of every quarter. It's kind of morphed into something a little bit different now, but the last couple, one of the WFC, there's a little bit of programming there, but it is much more about the networking. So I agree with Kim on that, because I think the places that have a WFN now formed have some pretty deep roots in it. It's just not the same. So maybe that gets
Yeah.
tied back into the mentoring program if that gets relaunched.
I
Yeah,
think that's
well, I was
a
gonna
great
say
point.
it is what we're doing on Clubhouse, where there's like an educational component of it, and people are asking direct questions that they need help on. So somehow we need to translate that to the in-person events, which the in-person events have been spotty since the start of COVID. They've been more virtual, which allows us access to more education
Yeah.
and
We're-
more
Yeah, we're
opportunity.
we're live events in Atlanta again, at least for now.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
Kim,
And I
did you
wonder
have
if there's-
something else you wanted to add?
Oh, no, sorry. Go,
No,
Kim.
you're good, Kim.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm gonna say with the Great Resignation, is that what they're calling it? There's an opportunity
Yeah.
there for franchising, and you probably already touched on this then, but is there a way we can really capitalize on that, I guess, and talk about how this is an alternative or could be a consideration for those who are trying to reinvent their work experience and their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I always thought the WFNs could be a great opportunity. I feel like in like the Atlanta market, a lot of female franchisees aren't connected to each other. And there's such an opportunity to refer business or just to, share war stories. So I always thought it would be great to get more franchisees involved in Atlanta and then
I would
I
say
guess,
if there's a category that's left behind, and with women right now, it's the franchise owners.
yes,
At least, and I speak for my own company. That's the category that's left behind. The
Yeah.
franchisor female employees are doing better, but the franchise, there's nothing
Right.
that I don't think where any of them feel invited
that's
or involved.
interesting. So School of
Right.
Rock started like a book club for their female franchisees that they're doing stuff together. And so they're reading or watching a TED Talk or doing something
I love
together,
that.
and then having these remote get-togethers to kind of talk about it and network. So they're trying to connect their female franchisees. So that just kind of reminded me.
Yeah,
of what
and we have that internally. We have that. We have a big group meet for all of our female franchisees. And it's funny, they won't let me go on it. So I go, come on, I'm not that bad of a corporate guy. But I'm talking about it's that cross referral thing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's what's missing is connect, just like we connected with each other because we forced it to happen, is connecting our female franchisees with other female business owners.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
there might be a really golden opportunity, especially in the cities where there's a WFN.
Yes.
Great. Love it.
Well,
Well, I
this
don't know
could
if
be
you guys
kind
have,
of
oh, go ahead, Terry Ann.
this could be, and this might get all deleted, a taboo topic, but I'm just going to put it out there. I just remember when I first came, I came to IFA from Capitol Hill, and working on the Hill, we went to the district, we came back to Washington, that was it. I had never been to a big convention at a hotel where people were drinking and having late night meetings, and you were operating in an environment that was kind of hybrid, social and professional, and in a predominantly male environment. It's not that way now, but just understanding how to navigate that. Maybe someone else can say it better than I can, but we see a lot of other industries where it's coming out that women didn't help each other or didn't coach each other, and whatever you thought was happening just to you was not necessarily happening just to you. And it could be anything from some men sitting around the table having a conversation about the basketball finals and saying, oh, you come back when we're finished talking, to something much more serious. And I'm just wondering if there's somebody else take it, because I don't know what I'm.
Well, you know where
You know what I'm talking-
I know you're going for it. And here's where I see that in our group is that now there's so many folks now are working virtual. And then they come together. And we literally just got home from our convention yesterday. So this was the first time for a lot of people, and well, a lot of people, over half the people who attended our convention had never been together with any of the floor coverings people. So it was the first time, and it was our largest convention, and we still had people who didn't show up. But there was, especially in the younger folks on our staff, that had never, we worked virtual, and then we have a very small office here in Atlanta, but getting together in that environment with all the stuff that goes on, and it's early mornings and late nights, and franchisees that want to buy everybody a drink, and it just,
Yeah.
and I know what you're saying, Terry, and and now,
Thank you.
especially if they're virtual, you go from, sitting by yourself to boom with 400 people. For some folks, it's the first time going through that, and it can be eye-opening.
Yeah.
Not in a good way.
No, not
Yeah.
in a good way. And it's not just what you perceive, it's what the people around you perceive of you in
Yes.
that position. And so being able to navigate it and be professional and not, because you might think that you're fine,
Right.
but other people might not approve of what you're thinking. I mean, you're just having fun, or they're just having fun, but somebody else might not see it
Mhm.
that way. We all have our stories. We
Yes,
all
we do.
have inappropriate situations that we've
Right.
had to navigate, and it's part of how we grew up.
Mhm.
Right, Rosemary? We grew up in franchising. I mean, when we were on the committee, I was 32, 34.
Yeah.
There was a lot of things that, this was before the whole we movement and
Right.
calling out what has gone on in the past. And I don't want to get too far into this conversation, but all women that are of an age remember those days, and creating their own network of other women helped protect us, because we had somebody else watching our back. We all watched each other's back and made sure that we had an eye on each other. And that was a huge part of, honestly, the WFC for me. I mean, I
Mhm.
had that group of women that I really trusted.
It's,
And-
I remember as a staff person, I didn't have that. And
Yeah.
I was in meetings and events when I started. And I just remember being thrown into this convention and thinking, oh my gosh,
I mean,
when
just,
the guy that's getting the Hall of Fame award is, being inappropriate. It's like, what?
right. We
What do you
just
do?
so we were in Mexico at, obviously, in a resort, and even with the folks that are on our internal team, right, where I really felt there was a couple of people I needed to go up to and say, you need to put a cover up on, like,
Yes.
that's perfectly fine for you to wear at your apartment pool, but
Right.
the difference is, I get, how do I say this?
I have done
Almost
that.
everybody that's in like the people that are in I say this to my kids all the time. When your generation is the CEO, you can be tattooed head to toe. Your generation is not the CEO right now. So you still have to live by our rules, if you will, until
Mhm.
your generation grows up. And so it's a little bit of, this might be how I act all the time, but those are not the people that are observing you. Like, it was very interesting. It was very
Well, I think-
interesting.
I think what Kim just said about having each other's back is a perfect way for me to describe it. Let's continue to have each other's backs, and let's ask questions and reach out to folks and not assume that they know how to, I just really like what you said, Kim, about looking out for young men. I mean, it's not just women, it's just for young
Right.
people in general.
Right.
And,
Yeah. I
Yeah,
just-
sometimes you have to tell our age group that in a very respectful way, whisper in their ear, hey, here's some protocol, here's some things that you need to be careful about. And,
Yeah.
I was at a franchisor conference a few years ago, and a young lady it was the first night, the big party with the cowboy hats and all that. And it was her first day on the job, and she's walking around with 2 beers in her hands, being very loud, and had to just kind of pull her aside and say, Jackie, to your point, Most of the people here are not in your age group, so
Mhm.
you just need to think about how you're perceived.
Your
You can do this
perception,
at home.
exactly, right? Yeah.
You can do this at home, but this is not something you want to do your first day on the job in front of people that are, 10, 20, 30 years older than you.
Mhm.
Yes.
What a great mentoring topic. I mean,
Yeah, I
imagine,
was gonna say, we talked about this on Clubhouse from
Yeah.
from being a leader and how you protect your team in a safety
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
But we got into that conversation of, would you have that conversation with a male staff member that, text me when you get to your room, you're being inappropriate at the bar.
Right.
As long as we see as leaders that this is about appropriate behavior for everybody. I think
Everybody, yes.
yes,
Yeah,
I think that there's some
yeah.
responsibility on how we coach both our male and our female staff as far as respecting
Yeah.
people and not getting to the point where you're making bad decisions because it's alcohol fueled and not rational thinking
Yeah.
fueled.
for what is professional protocol, it's a big
Mhm.
moving target in a way, and
Yes.
times change and our dress changes and attitudes change. And for both men and women, you say, any of us might relate, you say something inadvertently, right?
Mhm.
And I think Kim said it, it's not what you intended, it's how it was received, right? And so what is professional protocol for both men and women as we emerge from our lockdowns and our virtual worlds, if we actually get back together? Do we know how to behave again when we do that? But particularly for our younger people coming up in the ranks. I've been to many a franchise meeting where I internally was going, "Ooh, do that. You don't think like that, right?" And maybe somebody cares enough about you to take you aside and say, "Let me save you from yourself. You don't
Mhm.
want to do that." And how do you navigate that? And having each other's back. Boy, that's for men and women, that's a great topic.
Yes, men and women.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, I was in my early 30s when I joined the WFC. I was looking at you, Terry Ann. I was looking at Joyce, especially Joyce, who was the epitome of well put together and had
Yes.
a voice, and she was clearly a leader.
Mhm.
Terry Ann, your accomplishments, you're so well spoken. Lynna Hanneberg and
Yeah.
Lori Rennick, and
Mhm.
these women were my role models, and I took it like this is where I want to go in my career. So I just followed you guys around. I just was like, whatever they're doing, whatever they're wearing, whatever, I'm gonna do
Right.
that. Whatever, because they did it and it worked, I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna hopefully follow in those footsteps. And so, I saw Linda Hanneberg take a glass of wine and dump it out, put water in it,
Mhm.
and she drank that glass of water all night. I saw somebody else, I can't remember, and it might have been you, Lynette. You ordered like club soda with a lemon. And I'm like, oh, that's a good one. I like that. So that when somebody says, hey, can I get you a drink? Nope, I have one, thanks. And it was okay. It
Yep.
was okay because
Yep.
you're not expected to be doing all of this alcohol and but you still want to be there to socialize. You just want to have your wits about you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I learned from that.
Good. Well, excellent, ladies. I thank you all for joining us today. We really would not be here without you all coming together and getting this started. So we will continue doing work to just bring everyone in the community together, and hopefully we'll get you guys involved in some one-on-one interviews too. But appreciate your time today and just kind of talking about how it all started, where it all began.
So you've done kudos to you for doing a phenomenal job with the questions, not just
Yeah.
today, but always. I mean, the good answers come from great questions. So I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, good
Facilitator,
stuff.
Michelle, you're great,
Good job,
really.
Michelle.
Thank you.
So good to see all your beautiful faces.